What happens when a prince walks onto Good Morning America expecting admiration and instead meets accountability? Prince Harry sat across from Michael Strahan for what should have been a routine interview until it unraveled. The tension grew under polite smiles and measured tones, then erupted live on national television when Harry's composure slipped and his arrogance took the spotlight. The cameras caught every beat. The audience gasped. And by the end, Michael Strahan did what no host had done before. He ended the interview and sent a royal out of the studio. The Good Morning America set glowed with its usual early morning warmth. Cameras glided over the polished floor, lights bounced off gleaming set pieces, and producers whispered last-minute cues through earpieces. On one side of the iconic curved desk sat Michael Strahan, collected every inch the professional broadcaster. On the other, adjusting the cuff of his navy blazer and checking his reflection in the monitor, sat Prince Harry. He looked restless, his expression taut, a faint smirk on his lips. "Prince Harry," Michael began, smiling for the cameras. "It's an honor to have you here this morning." Harry nodded curtly, his voice clipped. "Please," he said, though it didn't sound sincere. Unbothered, Michael continued, "You've been in the U.S. for a while now. A lot of people are curious, how's life on this side of the pond?" Harry shifted. "It's refreshing," he said. "Less noise, fewer expectations. Here, I'm just myself, free from the old circus." The studio audience chuckled lightly. "I can imagine that's a big change," Michael said, then added carefully. "But some might say the circus followed you: Netflix deals, books, interviews. You've been very visible since leaving royal life." Harry's smirk faded. "Visibility isn't the same as exploitation, Michael," he replied coolly. "I'm telling my story. People told theirs about me for years. I think it's fair that I get the final word." "Absolutely," Michael said evenly. "But when you're in the public eye, people feel entitled to respond, to question, even challenge your version of things." Harry's expression hardened. "That's the problem, isn't it? Everyone feels entitled to dissect my life, to turn every emotion I show into a headline." Michael leaned in slightly. "I think people are just curious. You've spoken about wanting privacy, yet you've also shared very personal experiences on very public platforms. How do you balance that?" Harry let out a small, disbelieving laugh. "You Americans love that word, privacy. You think privacy means silence? It doesn't. It means control. I decide what to share, when, and how. That's the point." The air thickened. Michael smiled faintly, noting the edge in Harry's tone. "Fair enough, though some might say it's a complicated line to walk." Harry crossed his arms and leaned back. "Complicated for people who can't understand the pressure of being born into a world where every move is recorded. You wouldn't know what that's like." "You're right, I wouldn't," Michael said calmly. "But I do know public scrutiny. I was an athlete for decades. I know what it's like to be judged by millions of people you've never met." Harry gave a tight smile. "Yes, but you chose that life. I didn't." That was the first shift. The audience murmured. "True," Michael said slowly, "but you're choosing this interview. You're choosing this platform. That means people have the right to ask, you have the right to answer." "Or not," Harry shot back, jaw tightening. A few people laughed nervously. Michael chuckled lightly, trying to keep it friendly. "Fair point. You've been very vocal about stepping away from the monarchy. Looking back, is there anything you'd have done differently?" "Yes," Harry said, without hesitation. "I'd have left sooner." "That's a strong answer," Michael replied. "Honesty sounds strong when people aren't used to hearing it," Harry said. Michael smiled politely, but pressed on. "What about your family? Do you think those bridges can ever be rebuilt?" "I'm not here to talk about reconciliation," Harry said flatly. "I've tried that route. Some people only love you when you play by their rules. I think a lot of viewers would say family is family, no matter what, Michael said. Do you ever miss them? That did it. Harry's jaw flexed, his eyes narrowed. Michael, he said, softly, almost too calmly. If you'd lost your mother the way I did Diff, you'd been hounded since birth, you wouldn't be here asking me about nostalgia. The crowd fell silent. Michael nodded respectfully. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hit a nerve. I just think, no, you don't think, Harry cut in. You assume? That's what the media does best. You perform empathy while hoping for a reaction. Michael's smile faded, replaced by a near-mechanical professionalism. I assure you that's not what this is, he said evenly. I'm doing my job, asking the questions people want answered. Harry let out a short, derisive laugh. Your job seems to be making me look like the villain. The tension was palpable, even through the cameras, the slow unraveling of civility, an interview turning into a standoff. Michael leaned back, hands folded. I don't think anyone here sees you as a villain, he said calmly. Maybe they see someone who's still angry. Wouldn't you be? Harry snapped. After everything I've endured, everything I've lost. Maybe, Michael said after a beat. But anger only helps if it leads to healing. And I think that's what people want, to see you healed. Harry looked away, then back. Maybe I'm tired of being your redemption project. The cameras caught at the flicker of resentment, the controlled fury in the prince's eyes. And for the first time that morning, Michael Strahan's steady professionalism wavered, just slightly. The calm before the storm was over. The studio lights felt hotter. Cameras that once seemed invisible now loomed. The air took on that heavy stillness that settles before something goes wrong. Strahan kept his posture, glanced at his notes. Then back at Harry. He'd weathered countless interviews, from tense political sit-downs to scandal-plagued celebrities, but this felt different. It wasn't just discomfort across the desk. It was defiance. Let's shift gears, Michael said, measured and friendly. You and Meghan have both said you want to use your platform for good. What does that look like now? Harry adjusted in his seat, crossing one leg over the other with practiced superiority. It looks like impact, Michael. Real impact. We're building initiatives focused on compassion, mental health, and reshaping how people think about privilege and duty. That sounds great, Michael replied, polite but probing. Though, if I may, some critics say that while your intentions are noble, the delivery can feel self-centered, that your projects circle your own experiences rather than helping others tell theirs. The temperature dropped. Harry's smile vanished. Critics, he repeated, the word dripping disdain. You mean people who make money tearing others down? People who've never done a day of real service in their lives. I'm talking about journalists, commentators, and everyday viewers who follow your story. Michael said steadily. Many respect what you do, but others feel what? Harry cut in sharply. That I should stay quiet. That I shouldn't talk about my life because it makes them uncomfortable. His voice rose. The audience shifted uneasily. Michael lowered his voice. No one's saying you shouldn't speak, Prince Harry. But when you share so much publicly, people will have opinions. That's part of the trade-off. Harry scoffed. Funny word for exploitation. Exploitation. Michael echoed. You're part of it too, Harry said, leaning forward, voice sharpening. You know this. He gestured to the studio, the cameras, the crew. This entire system profits off my pain. You get headlines, viral clips, ratings, and then you ask why I seem defensive. A few audience members gasped. Michael exhaled, keeping his patience. Harry, I'm not profiting off your pain. I'm doing my job. This is a conversation. Harry laughed bitterly. No, It's an ambush. You came in with an agenda." "There's no agenda here," Michael said, sitting up straighter, firm but even. "These are questions any journalist would ask." "No," Harry said, running a hand through his hair. "They're the same tired narratives about my family, my wife, our choices. You people are obsessed." The phrase, "you people," hung heavy. The audience murmured. "I think our viewers are just curious," Michael said quietly. "You've been open about leaving the royal family to live freely. Yet you've done documentaries, interviews, books. Doesn't that keep you in the very spotlight you say you're escaping?" Harry's eyes flashed. "You think you're clever, don't you? Sitting there with your polished tone and teleprompter questions. You think you can trap me with word games?" Michael blinked, then smiled faintly. "I don't need to trap you, Harry. You're doing a fine job of that yourself." The crowd reacted a mix of gasps and muffled laughs. It wasn't mockery, but it cut the tension for a moment. Harry didn't appreciate it. His posture stiffened, knuckles whitening. "That's funny to you?" he said sharply. Michael shook his head, calm. "No. Sometimes honesty sounds like humor when people don't expect it." Harry leaned forward, glaring. "You think you're above me because you're an interviewer? Because you can sit there and poke at my life like it's a sideshow?" Michael frowned slightly. "Not at all. I'm asking the questions everyone watching would ask if they were in my chair. You came here to talk, and I'm giving you that space." Harry's voice dropped, low and cutting. "I didn't come here to be interrogated." "This isn't an interrogation," Michael replied, unwavering. "It's accountability. There's a difference." A hush fell over the studio. Harry gave a small, sarcastic clap. "Accountability, right? That's rich, coming from a morning show host." Michael's smile was thin, polite, practiced. "And yet, here you are on a morning show." The room went still again. The audience didn't know whether to laugh or hold their breath. Harry's jaw clenched. He leaned back, looking away for a moment. "You people love to twist things," he said. "You take vulnerability and turn it into ammunition. I talk about trauma, and suddenly I'm whiny. I talk about mental health, and suddenly I'm hypocritical." Michael nodded slowly. "That's tough. But you can't control interpretation, Harry, only your reaction to it." Harry's eyes snapped back. "That's the kind of self-help garbage people pay to hear from someone who's never actually suffered." Even Michael's patience faltered. He leaned forward, his usually calm voice sharpening. "You don't know what I've been through, and I won't pretend to know what you have. But attacking me doesn't make your story more believable. It just makes you look defensive." Harry's expression shifted, a flicker of panic, quickly buried under anger. "I'm not defensive," he snapped. "I'm sick of being painted as some spoiled prince who doesn't understand the world." Michael exhaled. "Then show people who you really are. That's why you're here, right?" Harry glared. "You want me to perform? To play the reformed royal for your morning ratings?" "I want you to be honest," Michael said, firmer now. "Not perform, not attack, just talk." Harry gave a bitter laugh, shaking his head. "You don't want honesty. You want sound bites, and what do you want?" Michael asked softly. "To be understood," Harry said at last. "Then stop fighting everyone who tries," Michael replied, low and measured. The line hit like a hammer. The audience murmured louder this time. Control of the room was clear. Harry's face flushed. He looked down briefly, then up. "You think you can psychoanalyze me on air?" "No," Michael said, meeting his gaze. "But I think the audience can see what's happening all by themselves." And there it was, the moment the interview began to unravel. Harry sat back in silence, jaw tight, eyes burning with a mix of pride and fury. Michael adjusted his notes, unshaken. The next question was ready, but something in the prince's glare warned him. They were past diplomacy. Whatever came next wouldn't be conversation, it would be collision. The studio air felt heavy, electric, the kind of tension that makes even camera operators hesitate to breathe. Michael Strahan straightened his papers again, not because he needed to, but to keep his composure. Across from him, Prince Harry looked coiled, jaw tight, fingers twitching slightly as if forcing himself to stay still. "Let's talk about something positive," Michael began gently, voice like a bridge trying to rebuild itself. "You've done a lot of work around mental health. Your recent campaigns have encouraged millions to open up about trauma. Do you feel you're making the impact you hoped for?" Harry let out a humorless laugh. "Impact? You tell me, Michael? Every time I speak about mental health, I'm accused of exploiting it. Every time I talk about trauma, someone says I'm playing the victim." Michael nodded slowly. "I think people can appreciate your advocacy and still question how it's presented. There's a difference between raising awareness and what making it about myself." Harry cut in, voice rising. "I've heard that one before. I wasn't going to say that," Michael replied calmly. "But I think the public perception—" Harry slammed his hand on the table, the microphones rattling. "Public perception," he barked. "That's exactly the poison I escaped. I'm not living my life for tabloids, Twitter threads, or bored morning show viewers." The audience gasped audibly. A producer motioned to lower the audience mics, but it was too late. The tension was fully on display. Michael exhaled slowly and set his papers aside. "Harry," he said evenly, "no one here is attacking you. But when you come on a show like this, people expect honesty. You're a public figure. It comes with questions." Harry's tone dripped with sarcasm. "Be honest, you don't want honesty. You want entertainment? You want your neat little viral clip of the angry prince?" "That's not true," Michael replied, voice steady but firmer now. "You agreed to this conversation. I've shown you respect since you walked in. Respect." Harry leaned in, eyes blazing. "You call this respect? You've thrown cheap shots since the first question about my family, my choices, my wife. That isn't respect." "I'm asking what everyone else is asking," Michael said evenly. "That's journalism." "Journalism?" Harry smirked, all contempt. "That's rich from a former football player turned talk show host." The jab landed. A few audience members murmured. Michael's jaw tightened. He took a slow breath. "You're right," he said at last. "I'm not a royal or a soldier or a prince. I'm someone who worked his way up from nothing. And I treat every guest here the same, with respect and fairness. Which is more than I can say for how you're treating this crew." Harry blinked, surprised by the pushback. "What's that supposed to mean?" Michael didn't raise his voice. "You've been dismissive, rude, and combative from the start. My staff bent over backward to make you comfortable. You've insulted the audience, the show, and now me because someone dared to ask about your own words. You don't understand what I've lived through." "You're right," Michael said quietly. "I don't. Maybe that's the problem. You've convinced yourself no one can. So you push people away the moment they try." The room went silent. Every camera locked on Harry. His composure was visibly slipping. "You think this is easy?" Harry's voice cracked. "You think I want to sit here defending myself to people who've never walked a day in my shoes?" "No one's asking you to defend yourself," Michael said, leaning forward. "We're asking you to connect. This was meant to show people who you are. Instead, you're proving every headline right." Harry's face darkened. "You think you know me. You read a few articles and think you've got me figured out. You have no idea who I am, Michael. You never will." "Then show us," Michael said. "Don't yell. Don't deflect. Be real." Harry laughed bitter, trembling. "You want real. Fine. I've been betrayed by people closest to me. I've watched the press tear apart the woman I love, I buried a mother who died because people couldn't get enough headlines. And here I am again across from another man in a suit trying to turn my pain into a segment. The words hit hard. Michael's face softened for a moment. I'm sorry for what you've been through, truly, but that doesn't give you the right to take it out on everyone who asks a question. You don't get it. You never will. Americans pretend to care about empathy, and the second someone like me speaks up, they call it whining. No one called you a whiner, Michael said quietly. But you're not helping yourself right now. Do you think you can lecture me about image and perception? Harry's tone turned venomous. You're just another cog in the same system smiles on camera, then business when the lights go off. No better than the tabloids. That was it. Michael's expression hardened. His voice stayed calm, but edged with steel. Enough. Excuse me. I said, enough. You've made your point, and I've let you speak even while you were disrespectful. But I'm not going to sit here while you insult me or this show. Harry leaned forward, fury flashing. You can't talk to me like that. Michael stood slowly. Actually, I can. Because right now, you're not a prince, you're a guest. And on this set, you play by the same rules as everyone else. The audience rippled with shock whispers, gasps, a few nervous claps. Harry stared up at him, chest heaving. You think you can kick me out? Do you know who I am? I know exactly who you are, Michael said. And I know what crosses the line. You're close. This is unbelievable. No, Michael snapped, still controlled. What's unbelievable is someone who talks so much about respect showing so little of it when challenged. The cameras caught everything Harry's clenched fists. Michael's composure, the air humming with tension. A simple interview had become something else. Not just a personality clash, but a battle of principle. And only one of them still looked in control. The studio no longer felt like Good Morning America. The soft morning light turned sharp and white, carving out to men locked in silent fury. The control room buzzed producers whispering, unsure whether to cut to commercial or let it play out. Michael Strahan stayed standing, posture straight, jaw tight with restraint. Prince Harry, still seated, looked cornered and unwilling to back down. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and dangerous. You think this makes you look strong? Kicking a guest off your little show, putting the big bad royal in his place. Is that what this is? This is about respect, Michael replied. Something you forgot the moment you sat down. Respect. From a man who built a career ambushing people for ratings. You're confusing tough questions with ambushes, Michael said. They're not the same. No, Harry snapped, slamming his hand on the desk. You think you can talk down to me because I won't play your American media game. You think I owe you explanations? No one owes me anything, Michael said, words landing harder now. But you chose to be here. You agreed to this interview. The second you didn't like the direction, you made it personal. Because your questions are insulting, Harry's voice echoed. You pretend to care about mental health and trauma while you mock me on national television. No one's mocking you, Michael said, exhaling. Maybe people don't take your advocacy seriously because every answer sounds like a lecture. You talk at people, not to them. Harry froze. The line landed like a blow. You're psychoanalyzing me now? You, a talk show host, think you know more about trauma than I do. No, Michael said, measured. But I know what accountability looks like, and right now you're dodging it. Harry's composure cracked. Accountability? I've given up everything for honesty. My family, my country, my peace. And you sit there like a smug judge pretending I'm the problem. Silence. No coughs, no movement, every word a live grenade. I've interviewed soldiers who lost limbs, parents who buried children, survivors of things I can't imagine, Michael said quietly. They had grace, humility, the ability to talk about pain without turning it into a weapon. Harry flushed. "How dare you compare me to people who don't get to walk away when it's hard?" Michael cut in, voice like glass. "You talk about suffering, but explode whenever you're challenged. You've mistaken privilege for persecution. That did it." Harry stood abruptly, his chair screeching back. The mic cord tightened across his chest as he pointed at Michael. "You don't get to lecture me. You don't get to sit there in your fancy suit on your little morning show and tell me how to live." Michael stayed calm, though his patience was gone. "Then why are you here, Harry? Why come on a show if you can't handle questions?" Harry shook anger or humiliation. No one could tell. "Because I thought this was a conversation, not an interrogation." "It was," Michael said, straightening. "Until you decided it wasn't. You're twisting everything I say. I'm repeating your words." Harry jabbed a finger. "You know your problem, Michael. You think you're a moral authority because you smile for the cameras? But you're just another performer in a shallow country, pretending to care about truth while you cash your checks and go home to your perfect life." The studio gasped too far, even for live TV. Michael's face finally hardened. "Harry," he said evenly, "you need to stop." Harry laughed. "What are you going to do, cut me off?" "Yes," Michael said, without hesitation. "That's exactly what I'm going to do." Silence. Harry stared. "You're joking." "I'm not. This interview is over." "You can't do that." "I'm Prince Harry." "Not here," Michael said. "Here, you're a guest who's forgotten his manners." Harry's face burned. "This is outrageous." "I'm not finished." Michael lifted a hand toward the booth. "We are—" The producers cut the feed. The on-air light died, replaced by a rushed ad bumper. But the cameras kept rolling silently, archiving every second. Harry stood, breathing hard. "You'll regret this," he hissed. "I'll sleep fine," Michael said. Harry ripped off his mic and tossed it onto the desk. "You people disgust me. You pretend to be fair. But you're all the same. Parasites." "Then you're free to leave," Michael replied. Harry hesitated a beat, aware some camera might still be recording, then turned and stormed off. His footsteps echoed down the hall like drumbeats of defeat. The studio stayed frozen for several seconds after the door slammed. Finally, Michael looked to the crew, voice calm but worn. "Let's take 5. He sank into his chair, rubbed his temples, and muttered, "That might be the most exhausting 10 minutes of my career." The clip would go viral within hours. Headlines would blare. "Prince Harry storms off Good Morning America set." "Michael Strahan ends royal interview mid-broadcast." Analysts would debate who was right, who crossed the line, who lost composure first. But inside the studio, there was no debate. They'd seen the moment the prince's charm gave way to entitlement. Michael Strahan, who kept his dignity in the face of arrogance, proved that sometimes the strongest move is to end the conversation. What do you think? Did Michael do the right thing? Was he defending journalistic integrity, or was Harry pushed too far? Tell me in the comments. I read every one. And if you liked this breakdown of one of TV's most explosive interviews, hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you'd never miss our next look at celebrity meltdowns, media showdowns, and the stories they don't want you to.